roast beef, roast beef, pickles on my roast beef.
Well, we're ready now to move on to the next topic, which is God's righteousness. By definition, God acts in conformity with his law, neither condemning the innocent, nor clearing the guilty, nor punishing with unnecessary harshness. He is just. Now, I particularly enjoy the word righteousness because the Greek word and the English word both come from the concept of that which is straight. It is right, as opposed to being wrong, which in English is the idea of being twisted. God is not twisted, he is straight. Over the years, I've had a fascination with poultry. I would imagine part of it is because I like flying. My dad's a pilot, and so from 7 years of age onward, I was used to hopping in a small plane and going somewhere with my dad. I was always fascinated by that. Early on, I was really fascinated by pet birds. I had a great aunt that had a little parakeet that could do all kinds of tricks, and I always thought that was kind of cool. I was a little bitter growing up that I wanted a parakeet, and my mom said, no, they're too dirty, they're too messy. And then a couple years later, my sister said that she wanted a pet lamb, and my parents said, okay. You know, the lamb was okay, but the parakeet was not. So I'm not too bitter about that, but that's the way things unfolded in my life. But at any rate, eventually, I got to the point where I was in a position where I could get some birds if I wanted to. And so inside the house, we had some parakeets for a while. I've had 2 parrots over the years and enjoyed them. And then one year, one of my kids comes home from school, and she says, listen, we are incubating eggs as a biology class project. Could we bring home the chickens and raise them if they hatch? Now, I'd grown up in farm country, and in the back of Popular Science and Popular Mechanics, they always have all kinds of little gadget you can buy. And there used to be this little round incubator, kind of a cheap yellow plastic and a clear dome, and a little light bulb inside for heat that you could then incubate eggs with. How many have ever seen that advertised? That little, I think it was a 2-egg plastic thing. And we had gotten that one year when I was growing up, and total failure, you know, the eggs didn't hatch out. And so I'm listening to my daughter ask if she could have these chickens if they hatch out. And I'm thinking, this is going to be pretty easy. I'll come off as the good dad. I'll say, sure, but they're not going to hatch out, and so I won't have to take care of the chickens. Well, lo and behold, they all hatched out at the Christian school. And so on the last day of school, my daughter comes home with 3 little chicks. As it turns out, one was male, one was female. The other one was kind of lame, and so he kind of hobbled around all the time. And so I go out and have to spend about $50 to build a chicken coop for my 3 chickens. So they're getting bigger, bigger, bigger. Eventually the male is a rooster, so now it's crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't a very pleasant part of it. But what I didn't really realize is that roosters have these spurs on their legs. Have you ever seen those? And they use them to attack, and I guess that's the basis then of rooster fights that some cultures like to have, where the roosters are trying to harm each other with those spurs. We actually had a child here on the ranch property. Fortunately, it was one of the zookeeper's children, so it wasn't a guest. But he got ripped with a rooster's spur and had to have stitches in his face. So, I mean, they can be pretty aggressive. Well, we had a little garden, both vegetable and a couple cherry trees. And one day, I'm out there pulling Japanese beetles off of my cherry tree leaves. And I noticed that the chickens really liked them, and so I'm throwing them to the chickens. Well, the rooster comes and it's participating in eating these beetles. And my son, who at the time was about 2.5, 3 years of age, just learning to walk pretty steady, came out from the house to be with me. And I didn't realize this might be a problem, but as my son is getting close to me, it was kind of narrow because of the tall garden vegetables. The rooster apparently felt threatened, as though my son was going to eat the Japanese beetles, and started to attack my son. And so I realized that I had to do something, so I kept over and I kicked it, and it rolled about 3 rolls, and it gets up, and now it's really mad. Now it's coming toward my son, ready to really give him the what for. And so I go like this, boom, go, about 30 feet through the air. Well, I realized at that point that raising these chickens isn't the greatest. And so we're going to have chicken for supper. Now, I'd always wanted to do this, and so I got myself a log and the 2 nails, and I got my hatchet. And I was going to let the chicken run around with its head cut off because I always wanted to see that in real person. But my wife said, no, we're not doing that. So, I have 5 daughters and a son, my wife. So there's all 8 of us. We're out there behind the shed. I got my little log, stick the chicken in there, pull him out, cut his head off, stick him in a bucket so the blood's not going everywhere, and he's, kicking and whatnot, and we butcher our first chicken. I look over at my son, 2.5, 3 years of age. He's kind of touching his neck like this. He's just kind of, thinking, what would that be like? So we went ahead and butchered those chickens, and that was the end of the big chickens. Well, we got interested in the bantam chickens. They're small enough, they don't make a big mess. They lay eggs, but the eggs are so small you can't eat them anyway. You're not going to butcher them. They're beautiful, all kinds of different colors. And so we decide that we're going to, have the bantams. Well, we eventually had about 25 of these bantams living there on our property. They would go up into the trees at night, all except for the really fat ones that couldn't fly. And they would go into a coop, and I had to go and shut the coop at night to protect them from the raccoons, the skunks, the weasels, etc. Well, one night in our bed, during the night, I hear a hen, and it sounded like she was cooing, like she was sitting on a nest. And we did have a flower box outside of our bedroom window, and I thought maybe she had, laid some eggs there, and she's there during the night sitting on her eggs. But I get up in the morning, here it had snowed, and I look in the flower box, and there's no markings as though the chicken had been there. And I thought, well, that's really strange. So the next night, I go out to close the chicken coop door, and as I'm walking towards it, this huge bird with a wingspan of about 6 foot raises its wings silently and flies away. It was an owl. And here it had pulled a chicken out of the tree. It had killed it. It was there, eating on the ground when I walked out. And then I realized that the night before, what I was hearing was one of my chickens being taken away from the owl and basically saying, help me, help me, help me, help me, as he flew past my bedroom window. Well, later on that spring, one night, we're eating supper, and all of a sudden, chickens start hitting the side of the house. And we go outside, it's dark, they're in the snow, and again, the owl's up there trying to get them, and now the chickens are all flying away from the owl. So we're thinking, oh man, losing our chickens here to the owls. Well, we decided it's time to maybe butcher a couple of them, get the flock down a little bit. And I just kind of felt bad about the chickens, cutting their heads off. So I thought, you hear about people wringing the neck of a chicken.
Wringing the neck of a chicken.
People wringing the neck of a chicken.
Okay, twisting. And that's the basis of this word wrung. That's what we're talking about here. Right is straight. Wrung is twisted.
Wrong is twisted.
Your wrong is twisted.
And so I thought, I am going to wring the chicken's neck. But I wasn't confident in my technique, so I also had a knife in case I needed to put it out of its misery. So I grabbed the chicken by the neck thinking, okay, we got all the weight in the body, so I'm going to give it one good snap.
So I'm gonna give it one good snap.
And certainly that is going to kill the chicken. I mean, it'll be unconscious immediately. It'll be a clean kill. Why snap that thing and it's flopping and carrying on and squawking, and now I'm getting upset and I'm going like this, trying to kill it, and it's not dying. So I nearly cut my finger off, chopping the head off with the knife just to put this poor thing out of its misery. So, this wringing the neck of the chicken, that brings up a lot of bad memories from these chicken experiences. Well, we decided to branch out, and we decided to try turkeys. Have you noticed the wild turkeys out here along Glendale Road and Route 9? That is amazing. Don't often see them regularly the way they've been out there for days now. Very beautiful. So we bought a couple turkeys, bought a couple ducks, and we put them in an enclosure up off of the ground to keep, again, the weasels away from them. So after 2 or 3 days, I walk out. They're real small at this time. And there's my 2 ducks. There's my 1 turkey. I can't find my other turkey. So I'm walking around, and about 12 feet away in the woods, I see a pile of feathers and some blood. And I thought, well, there's my turkey. Now, how did he get out of there? So I walk back to the cage. It's this little 1-inch mesh. So I'm looking, and I see a ring of red and a little feathers around one of the holes in the mesh. And I'm thinking, that turkey, during the night, a raccoon comes. He has his arm in there, reaching around. The ducks are all walking away. The turkey is, oh, what's that? He gets ripped right out through the cage, and he's gone. Well, we bought another turkey, have 2 of them. They grew up very big. They stood about waist high. One turned out to be a male, and the other one turned out to be a female. And then one day, my kids are crying, Dad, come quick. So I go out, and the male is chasing the female around the pen. And the female is down in the dirt under a tree, hiding from the male. Now, the male was not fully mature, didn't have its full tail feathers yet. So it's strutting around like turkeys do, this fan tail, but it's like a jack-o'-lantern. It only has like 2 of the feathers there, being Mr. Big Stuff. And I'm thinking, oh no, now I'm gonna have to spend another $50 to have a separate pen for the female turkey and the male turkey. When all of a sudden, the male turkey comes close to where the female was, she lunges out from underneath the tree, grabs the male by the neck, puts it down on the ground. You know how they have the red wattles? It completely went white. His whole head, the wattles all turned white as he's being held down the ground, flopping around. Female wouldn't let him up. After about 2 or 3 minutes, lets him up, and that was the end of that. He did not bother her at all anymore. Well, when they got full grown, even though the fence was waist high, they could jump and fly out of the pen. So they're constantly going over to the family campground, to the Pines. So one night, it's towards the end of the summer, apparently the summer workers were having their banquet in one of the big rooms there. And we're walking around the campground with a flashlight trying to find our turkeys. And someone said, are you looking for something? And we said, yes. And they said, are you looking for turkeys? And we said, yes. He said, well, they're over on the campground porch looking into the workers having their turkey dinner. And sure enough, there they were perched up on the fence looking in. So we grabbed our turkeys, brought them back. Next morning, I'm waking up and I hear crows calling out on the road, and I knew intuitively what had happened, and sure enough, that's what happened. The male had gotten out again, got run over on the road, and now the crows were having their early Thanksgiving. Well, we finally decided we had to go ahead and kill the female as well for Thanksgiving, and unfortunately, again, a kind of a heart-rending situation. It really loved us, and it would follow us everywhere. And so we have a picture of the 8 of us in a line with the turkey at the end, and I'm holding the axe, and we all turn and we walk to the chopping block, and the turkey comes right on behind. It was sad, but it had to happen. It had to end. My dad, as I said, is a pilot. And one year, someone at the airport where he kept his plane was taking a cat on a family vacation. And as they're taking off, the cargo door in the back came open and the cat panicked and jumped out of the airplane, okay? About 500 feet up. But cats, like you hear, they can spread and they can, he survived, the cat lived. It was amazing. So the people at the airport, they start thinking, I wonder what a chicken would do. Now chickens can fly. But of course, they only fly a couple feet off the ground. So they put a chicken in the airplane, take it up about 1,000 feet and push it out. Well, the chicken's never been this high. And so the chicken wants to get to the ground as soon as possible. So he pulls his wings in and does the old no dive. Of course, he's never gone that fast. He gets towards the ground. He puts his wings and his tail out to slow down and
Slow down.
Slow down.
that was the end of the chicken. So those are my experiences with chickens. And I hope the next time you see the word righteousness, which means straight, you'll think of wringing the neck of a fowl, of a poultry. Twisted, wrong. That's what we are as individuals, sinners in the sight of a holy God.